June 16th, 1899, Volume 2. Chastisements are necessary in order to humiliate the creatures. He still continues to make himself seen with the intention to chastise. I prayed him to pour his bitternesses into me and to spare the whole world, and if this were not possible, to spare at least those who belong to me and my town. The intention of the confessor also seemed to unite to this intention, so it seemed that, conquered by the prayers, Jesus poured a little bit from his mouth, but not that cup mentioned above. That little bit he poured, he seemed to pour in order to somehow spare my town, though not completely, as well as those who belong to me. However, this morning, I myself have been a cause of affliction for Jesus, since after he had poured, I saw him more calm. Without thinking, I said to him, "My lovable Jesus, I pray you to free me from the bother I caused to the confessor of having him come every day. What would it cost you to free me yourself, releasing me from that state of sufferings yourself, just as you yourself put me in it? Indeed, it would cost you nothing, and if you want, you can do everything." But while I was saying this, Jesus' face turned so afflicted that I felt that affliction penetrate deep into my inmost heart, and without telling me a word, he disappeared. How mortified I remained, the Lord alone knows, thinking especially that he might not come any more. However, after a little while he came back, but with greater affliction, with his face all swollen and full of blood from offenses he had just received. All sad, Jesus said, "Look at what they have done to me. How can you say that you do not want me to chastise creatures? Chastisements are necessary in order to humiliate them, and not to let them grow bolder." June 16th, 1903, Volume 5. What renders the soul more dear, more beautiful, more lovable, and more intimate with God is her perseverance in operating to please him alone. Continuing in my usual state, I found myself outside of myself, and I saw baby Jesus with a cup full of bitterness and a stick in his hand. And he said to me, "See, my daughter, what a cup of bitterness the world continuously gives me to drink." And I, "Lord, share it with me so you won't suffer alone." So he gave me to drink a little bit of that bitterness, and then with the stick he had in his hand, he began to pierce the place of my heart through, to the point of making a hole from which a rivulet of that bitterness which I had drunk came out. However, it was changed into sweet milk, and went into the mouth of the baby, who was all sweetened and refreshed. Then he told me, "My daughter, when I give to the soul the bitterness of tribulations, if the soul conforms to my will, is grateful to me, thanks me for it, and offers it to me as a gift, for her it is bitterness, it is suffering, but for me it changes into sweetness and refreshment. But what cheers me the most and gives me the most pleasure is to see that the soul, whether she operates or suffers, is all intent on pleasing me alone, with no other end or purpose of recompense. However, what renders the soul more dear, more beautiful, more lovable, more intimate with the divine being, is her perseverance in this way of behaving, which renders her immutable with the immutable God. In fact, if today she does something and tomorrow she doesn't, if one time she has one end and one time another, if today she tries to please God and tomorrow creatures, she is the image of one who today is queen and tomorrow a most miserable servant. Today she nourishes herself with delicious foods, tomorrow with filth. After a little while he disappeared, but a little later he came back, adding, "The sun is there for the benefit of all, but not everyone enjoys its beneficial effects. In the same way, the divine sun gives its light to all, but who enjoys its beneficial effects? One who keeps his eyes open to the light of truth. All others, even if they are exposed to the sun, remain in the dark. However, it is one who is all intent on pleasing me that truly enjoys and receives all the fullness of this sun." June 16th, 1919, Volume 12. There is no sanctity without the cross. No virtue can be acquired without union with pains. I was thinking in my interior, where are the pains that my sweet Jesus had told me he would let me share in, while I am suffering almost nothing? And my always lovable Jesus told me, "My daughter, how you deceive yourself. You calculate the physical pains. I calculate physical and moral pains. Each time you have been deprived of me, it was a death you felt, and I felt I was being repaired for the many deaths which creatures give themselves through sin, and you took part in the many deaths which I suffered. When you were feeling cold, that was another little death you felt, and you shared in the coldness of the creatures who would want to cool my love. But my love, triumphant over their coldness, absorbs it into me to feel the death of their coldness, and I give to them more ardent love. And so with all your other pains, they were evils opposite those of the creatures, and like many little deaths, they made you share in my deaths. And then don't you know that my justice suspends your pains when it is forced by the evil of peoples to pour out new chastisements? Evils will be so grave as to be horrifying. I know that this is a pain for you, but I too had the same pain. I would have wanted to free creatures from all pains, both in time and in eternity, but this was not granted to me by the wisdom of the Father, and I had to resign myself. Would you perhaps want to surpass my very humanity? Ah, daughter, no kind of sanctity is without cross. No virtue can be acquired without union with pains. However, know that I will repay you at usurious interest for all my privations, and even for the pains that you would want to suffer and you don't. June 16th, 1928, Volume 24. Example of a spouse when he separates in court, as God did from the beginning of the fall of man. The new engagement for the marriage was done on the cross. The fulfillment of the divine will. I was thinking about what is written here above, and blessed Jesus continued telling me, "My daughter, it is indeed true that the Supreme Being made its marriage with humanity at the beginning of creation, and it happened as to a husband when his wicked wife induces him to separate in court. But in spite of this, an affection remains in his heart, and he thinks and yearns that if his chosen one should change, who knows, I may once again be able to unite and bind myself with her with the bond of marriage. And therefore he often lets news reach her ear through messengers that he loves her. So God did. Even though the marriage with humanity was unbound in the divine court, he kept an affection, and though far away, he longed for the new bond of marriage with humanity, so much so that he did not destroy the palace that he had formed with so much sumptuousness and magnificence, nor did he take away from her the good of the sun that formed the day, but he left everything, so that the very one who had offended him might make use of it. Even more, he maintained the correspondence by choosing, from the very beginning of the world, now one of the good, now another, who were like messengers. And like many postmen, some brought the little letters, some the telegrams, some the phone calls from heaven, in which it was announced that the faraway spouse had not forgotten her, that he loved her, and that he wanted the return of the ungrateful spouse. So in the Old Testament, the more I multiplied the good, the patriarchs and the prophets, the more pressing were the invitations and the mail that ran between heaven and earth, through which God was sending news that he desired the new union. This is so true that, unable to contain the ardor of his love any longer, and since decayed humanity was not yet disposed at that time, he made an exception, espousing the Virgin Queen and the humanity of the Word with bond of true marriage, so that by virtue of them, decayed humanity might be lifted up again, and I might form the marriage with the entire humanity. So my humanity formed the new engagement with her on the cross, and everything I did and suffered, up to dying on the cross, were all preparations in order to carry out the desired marriage in the kingdom of my divine will. Now, after the engagement, there are pledges and gifts left to be exchanged, and these are the knowledges about my divine fiat. Through them, humanity is given back the great gift that man rejected in Eden, the eternal, infinite, and interminable gift of my will. And this gift will attract decayed humanity so much that she will give us in exchange the gift of her poor will, that will be the confirmation and the seal of the union of the spouses, after such a long chain of correspondence, of faithfulness on the part of God, and of inconstancy, ingratitude, and coldness on the part of creatures. So my daughter man degraded himself and lost all goods because he went out of my divine will. In order to ennoble himself, to reacquire everything and receive the rehabilitation of the marriage with his Creator, he must enter once again the divine fiat from which he came. There are no ways in the middle. Not even my very redemption is sufficient to make man return to the beginning of the happy era of his creation. Redemption is means, way, light, help, but not the end. The end is my will, because my will was the beginning, and by justice, one who is the beginning must also be the end. Therefore, humanity must be enclosed in my divine volition to be given back her noble origin, her happiness, and to place the marriage with her Creator in force once again. Therefore, the great good that my redemption did to man is not enough for our love, but it yearns for more. True love never contents itself. Only then is it content when it can say, I have nothing else to give him. And knowing that man can return to be happy, victorious, glorious, in the noble state in which he was created by God, and this by means of my will reigning in their midst. This is why all the divine yearnings, the sighs, the manifestations, are directed toward making our will known in order to make it reign, so as to be able to say to our love, calm yourself, for our beloved Son has reached his destiny. He is now in possession of our inheritance that was given to him in creation, which is our fiat. And while he possesses what is ours, we possess him. Therefore the marriage is fulfilled once again. The spouses have returned to their place of honor. There is nothing left but to celebrate and enjoy a good so great after so long a sorrow. June 16th, 1931, Volume 29, Jesus Prays. The necessity to possess a good in order to be able to communicate it to others. The little lights form an intertwining with the great light of the divine will. My abandonment in the divine volition continues, though under the nightmare of the privations of my sweet Jesus. Poor heart of mine, how tortured it is, fatigued, for it cannot find he who makes it breathe his celestial air and palpitate the life of his very heartbeat. My Jesus, my life, did you yourself not used to tell me that you wanted me to live and breathe your divine air, and to form my life in your own heartbeat, so that mine might be dissolved in yours, and live of your heartbeat, and therefore of your love, of your pains, and of the whole of yourself? But while my poor heart poured itself out because of the pain of the privation of my beloved Jesus, I felt him move sensibly in my interior, and with clear voice his words resounded to my hearing, saying with unspeakable tenderness, "Holy Father, I pray you for my children, and for all those whom you have given me, and whom I recognize as mine. In these arms of mine do I clasp them to myself, that they may remain defended and safe from the storm that they are arming against my church." Then he added, "My daughter, how many turncoats there will be! How many masks will unmask themselves! I could no longer bear their hypocrisy. My justice was filled with so many pretenses, and therefore they could no longer keep the mask that covered them. Therefore pray together with me that those who must serve my glory may remain safe, and those who want to strike my church confounded." Then he became silent, and my poor mind saw many gloomy and tragic things. And while I was praying, my highest good Jesus repeated, "My daughter, in order to communicate a good to others, it is necessary to possess the fullness of the same good. In fact, by possessing it, one knows its effects, the substance, the practice of how that good is acquired. Therefore he will have the virtue of being able to infuse it in others, of knowing how to tell its beauties, the prerogatives, the fruits which that good produces. But if the soul has acquired just a sip of a good, of a virtue, and wants to start teaching it to others, she will not know in depth the fullness of that virtue. Therefore she will not be able to retell its great good, nor to give the practice of how to acquire it. So she will make the impression of a child who, having learned just the vowels, wants to act as a teacher to others. Poor child, he will act as a teacher for mockery, because he will not be able to go forward into other teachings. This is why the true saints have first filled themselves with love, with divine knowledges, with invincible patience, and other things. And when they have filled themselves so much, to the point of no longer being able to contain it within themselves, the outpouring of the goods that they possessed that came out, they communicated to the peoples, and their word was fire, was light, and they taught not in a superficial way, but in a practical and substantial way, the good that they possessed. This is the reason why many want to act as teachers, and they do no good, because sufficient food is lacking in them. How can they nourish others? Then after this I abandoned all of myself in the supreme Fiat, and my poor mind wandered within it. and I remained as though enraptured in seeing before me the divine being and an interminable light, disposed as many innumerable rays coming out from the center of it. These rays were very often intertwined with little lights that were bound to the interminable rays of the adorable Majesty, and that seemed to be a birth from the same light, and nourished themselves with light, to be formed as life of light, and grow as God wanted them. What enchantment is the divine height! Its presence enraptures. The eye is lost in its immensity, and its beauty, the multiplicity of its infinite joys, is so great that they seem to fall down more than pouring rain from its divine being. So one feels oneself being struck dumb, and therefore one can say little or nothing. Then, while I was all immersed in what was present to my mind, my beloved Jesus told me, "Daughter of my divine volition, look, this immense light is nothing other than the emanation of our will from the center of our divine being." As we pronounced the Fiat, it extended to form each created thing with its creative strength, and so that nothing might go out from inside its light, it kept within itself what it issued from our creative hands. So those intertwinings with the rays of our light that you see are nothing other than all created things. Some of them are as though in custody within our light, so that they may not suffer any change. Others, and these are the creatures who live in our will, are not only in custody, but in act of receiving continuously from God, in order to grow, to nourish themselves with light, and form with their little lights, and intertwining with the very divine volition, so as to let it operate in the little light. So these little lights give the field to our divine Fiat to render it continuously operating in them. It seems that they give us something to do, and they let us continue the work that, with so much love, we started in creation. And when the creature gives us the occasion to continue our work, giving us freedom to operate within her little light, we are so pleased with her that we render the little light operating together with our work, and we do not feel isolated on the part of creatures, but we enjoy the beauty of her company, and she enjoys our own. Therefore, by living in the divine will, you never leave us alone, and you will have the great good of enjoying our company. June 16th, 1934, Volume 33. The human will was created queen in the midst of creation. How everything flows between the fingers of our Creator. I continue my abandonment in the divine Fiat. Its acts are for me as so many nourishments that, nourishing me, I feel the growth of its life in me. Its strength that, imposing itself over my human will, conquers it and enraptures it in His, in order to tell it, "Let us live together, and you will be happy with my own happiness. I put you forth to the light of day, not in order to keep you far away, but together with me in my own will. If I have created you, it is because I felt the need to love you and to be loved, such that your creation was necessary for my love, the knoll of my will. As my little field, I want to make a display of my works, of my mastery, and this in order to form and give outpouring to my love. How adorable will, how lovable and admirable you are, such that you want me in you, in order to give life to your outpourings of love. And if you love so much that the creature lives in your divine volition, because you did not create us as the sky, the sun, without will, it was so you could do what you want. But while I thought this, my sweet Jesus surprising me, all goodness told me Blessed daughter, you must know that the most beautiful thing created by us was the human will. Among all created things, it is the most beautiful, that which resembles us more. Therefore it can be called the queen among everything, as indeed it is. All things are beautiful. Beautiful is the sun that with its vivifying light gladdens, smiles on everything. With its light it makes itself eye, hand, and step of everyone. Beautiful is the sky that covers everything with its starry mantle. But for however beautiful all created things are, not one can boast of having made us the little act of really loving us. There is not one outpouring of exchange. Everything is mute silence, and everything that we do it alone. No one echoes us to respond to the so many seas of love that there are in all created things. Not even the littlest outpouring is given to us, because the outpouring is formed between two wills that have reason and know if they do good or evil. Therefore the human will was created queen in the midst of creation, queen of itself, outpouring of love with its creator, queen of all created things. Freely it can do a world of good, prodigies of valor, heroism of sacrifices, if it sets itself on the side of good. But if it sets itself on the side of evil, as queen it can do a world of ruin, and can fall from the highest place even to the bottom of the greatest miseries. This is why among all things we love the human will, because we made it queen. It can tell us that it loves us. It can nourish our outpouring of love. It can place itself in a contest with us, we to love it and it to love us. Therefore we have gifted it with such prerogatives, even to giving it our likeness. It is nothing other than a simple act, and yet it is the hand, the foot, the voice of her human being. If the creature were to have no will, she would be similar to the beasts, slave of everyone, without the imprint of the divine nobility, our divinity. Most pure spirit, there is no shadow of the material in us, and yet we invest everything in everyone, and we are the life, the motion, the foot, the hand, the eye of everyone. The human life flows in the midst of our fingers as actor and spectator, breath and heartbeat of every heart. And what we do for everyone and everything, the human will is for itself. One can say that for the prerogatives that it possesses, it can mirror itself in us, and we find our little mirror in it. Our power, wisdom, goodness, love, can form their reflections in the simplest act of the human will. O human will, how beautiful you have been created by your Creator. Beautiful is the sky, the sun, but you surpass it. And even if you had no other beauty, just because you can tell us that you love us, you possess the greatest glory, the enchantment that you can enrapture your Creator. June 16th, 1938, Volume 36. How the Divine Will always wants to give and receive from the creatures. Mutual exchange. Rights that are lost, an empire acquired. How God finds everything in one act done in His will. Continuing my flight in the Divine Will, I feel it doesn't give me time, always wanting to give me of itself and to receive what is mine. If I don't know what to give, being just nothing, it wants my will again and again. This is its feast, receiving the will of the creature as a gift, and if necessary, receiving always the same thing it gave, happy to give these back again, redoubled with new love, light, and sanctity. Divine will, how much you love me. Oh, how much I'd like to love you in return. I felt completely immersed in the Fiat when my always adorable Jesus, visiting my little soul, all goodness, said, "My little daughter of my will, you do not know how far my love goes for the soul who lives in it, how many new things I'm up to, taking her by new surprises, always having something to do with her and always keeping her captured by me. I do not give her time. Now I tell her a truth. Now I give her a gift. Now I show her our enrapturing beauty and our whispering, burning, delirious love that wants love in return. In sum, I just do not give her time, and what I want the most, and always, is for her not to give me time either. Listen to what I do. In order always to give and receive, I call the creature to live in my will, and I offer her its sanctity, light, life, love, and infinite joys, as much as she can contain them. After a while, finding her loyal, I go to her and I say, "Give me back what I gave to you." She promptly delivers everything without hesitating an instant, to show me how much she loves me. Even her breath, her heartbeat, her motion, everything. She gives me everything, not keeping anything for herself. Rather, she's happy to give all to her Jesus. And I take it all. I look and look again at what she gave me, to delight and amuse myself with her gifts. Then I put them inside my heart to enjoy them as the property of my daughter. But do you think I remain satisfied? For the creature I am, but not for myself. Never. My love doesn't give me peace. It swells up. It overflows, driving me to the greatest excesses. And do you know what I do? I give my whole being to my beloved creature. I double everything she gave me. I give her doubled love, light, sanctity, my breath, my motion, my very life, so that I breathe in her breathing, I move in her motion, I love in her love. There is nothing I do not do within her. I just do not want to do anything without her. I would feel as if I didn't love her in all my things, and this would be unbearable. I must give all to the one who gave me all. Do you think it's nothing that your Jesus gives you his life to let you live in me, asking for your life to live within you? Trying almost to find ever new excuses to give and to receive, to have a chance to tell you the long story of my will and my eternal love story? This is not just to give you simple news, to show you how good, holy, and powerful I am, but to actually provide you with my love, will, sanctity, goodness, and beauty. Isn't such an excessive love almost unbelievable? Just by wanting to always keep her with me, I show my great love. I give her something of myself, since she possesses nothing by herself that is worthy of me. Then, making it her own, she can say, "You gave to me, and I give to you." Isn't this the kind of love to break and move even the hardest hearts? Only your Jesus can love in this way. Only your Jesus knows how to love in this way. Nobody can claim to be able to reach me in love. I myself do it for one who lives in my will. Every act she does in it is like a sun rising in fullness of glory and sanctity. I take shelter in these suns to delight and rest. Then I find my beloved creature all immersed in these suns. She looks so beautiful to me. Moreover, by living in my will, there is nothing human in her. She loses the rights on her will and on all that is human. All rights over her will become ours, while she acquires the rule over all that is divine. Oh, how beautiful, how pleased and happy we are in seeing her with the right of ruling all that belongs to us. She rules over our love and takes as much as she wants to love us. She also rules over our love to be loved. She rules over our wisdom and makes us reveal unspoken truths on our Supreme Being. She rules over our goodness and makes us pour this more than beneficial rain over all creatures. Her empire on our paternal lap is so sweet and powerful that we even say, "Who can resist you, daughter? What you want, we want." Therefore, if you want all, never leave our will. Everything will be yours, and you will be all ours. After this, I kept on thinking about the divine will, its great wonders, how sometimes, while crossing its sea, everything is serenity and profound peace. Its divine sun glows with light, but all is silent. And since its word is life, the new life it desires seems to be missing. While I was thinking this, my sweet Jesus said, "My daughter, the sun of my will always speaks. The light is not silent, but speaks with its warmth, its fecundity, and by impressing its various beauties into the soul living in it. Then here I am, the bearer of its word, lowering myself to the human intellect, making easier and in simpler terms the height of the word of my Fiat's light. Therefore my will is never silent where it reigns, but speaks through light or through my word. However, when you are not attentive, you do not ruminate well. You do not eat, so you cannot digest what I tell you. Then you forget it, and say, I did not tell you anything. You must know that in every word or act done in my will, all centuries are embraced. All creatures are enclosed in present. Past and future do not exist for us and for who lives in our will. Even more, our truths contain all centuries, all times. They are the bearer of all creatures in the act of those who live in our will, and in that act we find ourselves and the love and the glory that everybody should give us. For this reason, when the creature is about to operate and to receive the operating act of our Fiat, all heaven bows in reverence, amazed to see a divine volition operating in this act. Therefore we find everything in this act done by the creature in our will, our power that honors us as we deserve, our immensity that contains all and puts all at our disposal, our wisdom that sings to us the most beautiful notes, our divine being, the angels who praise us, the saints who enraptured repeat, Holy, holy, thrice holy the Lord our God, who works with such goodness and manifests his love. We can say that nothing is missing in the act of the creature. Our glory is complete. Our love finds sweet rest and perfect return. This is why we long so much for one who lives in our will, and it seems as if we had not done anything in creation, because the greatest act we can do is missing. Our life, repeating itself in the human act, in which we find ourselves, everything and everybody. There is not good we will not give to our beloved creature, and there will not be love or glory that she will not give us. She will find everything she wants in us, and we in her. Daughter, wanting to give all, but being able to give only a small part of our goods, having to keep our love constrained and hampered, is a suffering for us, and all because our will, as life, is missing in the creature. Not being able to receive everything from her is the greatest pain of our creative work. And therefore our love, our power and wisdom, all our creative work demand that the creature live in our will. The centuries will not pass away until our fiat will form its kingdom, and when it will reign, it will give all the goods and the dominion over them to the human generation. Therefore pray, and may your life be a continuous act in our will to obtain the coming of its kingdom. End of June 16th. Fiat.